Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our Succession Season 4, Episode 7 reaction and review. I am the Slim Reaper. No, what's with the Slim Reaper reference, Matsson? Sure, I may hate everything else about you, but apparently you're a Kevin Durant basketball fan? No, this episode was iconic. Like, not to sound like I'm some sort of like weird influencer on TikTok, but it's just like this was, I think, an incredible episode of TV. Like one of my favorites this season. Yeah,
Wow.
so many good moments, so many people just like firing on all cylinders.
Absolutely. I mean, the highlight for me was Shiv and
Oh
Tom
boy.
just having it out and laying everything on the table. I think that this was such an important turning point for their relationship to actually, I know this is going to sound really weird, but to actually go forward together and be happy together because they're good. They've laid it all out now.
This is a fantastic Shiv and Tom episode. I think it's a fascinating Kendall episode. I think for
Yeah.
all of you other fellow con heads out there hanging out in Connor's corner, we got a lot to talk about with Connor.
Oh yeah.
Later on.
Yeah, we do. This was, I think, a really good win for him.
Yeah, good for you, Connor. Now, of course, before we get any further here, recently, Jess and we started an official Patreon that we have a link for in the description. And over there, we've got a lot of awesome content going on right now.
Yep.
You have exclusive videos on a lot of the shows we cover, including a brand new Succession one that is all about who is going to end up on top at the end of this crazy show. Exclusive videos are one of the tiers, and some of the others include access to polls, having your name featured at the end of the video, just like this one. So yeah, head over to that link in the description. We very much appreciate everyone's support, and we've also got stuff on the blacklist over there, Yellow Jacket, Survivor. This is a very busy month of TV.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I mean, this is in addition to what we have going on here at the channel. We'll be bringing you our Succession reviews every Sunday after the show. But yeah, we have a Patreon exclusive video over there on who we think is going to end up on top. And the answer might surprise some of you, especially after tonight's episode. So put on your hard hats, hit that link, and check it out.
Okay, let's just keep the hard hats on, because I feel like the top story for a lot of people coming out of this episode, and I don't think it's any surprise, because I think that I saw Matthew McFadden and Sarah Snook at the post office mailing in their Emmy submissions for this episode.
Oh my goodness, it was a very long time coming. Like, they've had a very surface kind of fake relationship in a lot of ways. They both know why and how they're in this relationship together, but they've never really been honest about it. And because of that, it makes it impossible for these two to have any kind of a deeper relationship or understanding of each other. And even though Shiv has come from a family where learning how to love and give love and accept love. I mean, we all remember Connor's speech, a few episodes back, where he was like, hey, growing up with a family that doesn't love you teaches you how to live without it. And it does, of course, make it difficult for relationships. We've seen Roman doesn't have any, and Kendall's had difficulty with his, Shiv's had difficulty with hers. Connor's the only person who's kind of figured it out, and they did it the same way that Shiv and Tom are doing it now, which is they really laid out what their relationship honestly is and how they're going to be able to go forward in their marriage together. And that's why when we had, Connor have this offer to be like, hey, if you drop out and give your 1% to Mangan, we'll give you some other stuff, some other positions. And by the end of it, he was like, no, I've spoken to Willa. I don't think that I want to do that. And I'm going to trust the only person who doesn't think I'm a joke. And it was just like, yes. And so when we get back to Shiv and Tom, that's why, for me, I really think that this is just the beginning for them going forward now.
The craziest thing about this is they are the ultimate sort of, I think, rubber band of this show, where provided that the rubber band doesn't just snap completely, but you can kind of stretch it back and it just kind of pops back. And it's just sort of like, I never think that these two are ever going to completely be over just because they have already had every reason in the world for this to fall apart. I mean, even before they got married, let
Mhm.
alone what happens with Tom in the finale last season or everything in the fallout of all that. I will say at the start of this episode, when you've got like Tom trying to do, I don't know, the whole, oh, I brought you some food. Here you go. This whole routine. I was just like, okay, this is going far too well for Shiv and Tom early on in this episode.
Yeah, I was kind of worried at the beginning, actually, when he was doing all that until she opened the box and it's like this scorpion. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. Because they kind of had been now having this back and forth that is little honest jabs at each other to get to this point where they finally lay it all out in the harshest way possible. And I know we saw at the end of the episode they were, in separate beds, but I do not think this is the end. That's my tinfoil hat
Yeah.
theory. Maybe I'm going to take an L on this one going forward, but I think this is going to make them way stronger going forward. And honestly, they need each other. I mean, the brothers are not really bringing Shiv in on what's going on there. Matsson is not really giving Shiv what she's asking for either, where she's like, listen, I am giving you everything that you're asking for. And, what am I getting out of this? Well, what do you want? Well, I want a top spot. Let me get back to you. Like, really, Shiv and Tom are kind of in that same spot and they need each other.
I think it's also a question of how do Shiv and Tom define love? Because love is like different for every single person.
Yes.
I think Tom loves Shiv. I don't think I'm ever gonna like sway against that. I think, his idea of love is sort of intertwined with the idea of power and importance, and I don't think
Mhm.
he can really separate the two fully. I think he loves Shiv because of the way Shiv makes him feel when he has sort of the power that's associated with being with her. I think at his highest moments, he enjoys her as a person. I think Shiv, on some level, as much as she does love and care about Tom. That doesn't mean it's like, not complicated by 100 other issues and awful things that they say to each other. I think the most interesting and perhaps devastating moment of this entire episode is Tom basically saying, you shouldn't be a mother to Shiv when, we know everything we know about Shiv's story this season. And it was I thought the moment that conversation was getting heated, where this was all going to end up going. And then she didn't say it. Like she kept that. And that was very surprising and very interesting.
I didn't find that surprising at
Okay.
all.
All right.
Mostly because Shiv still is in this position where she's not going to give Tom that information. I've said this in the past video as well. Shiv's in a really tough spot right now because in this world that she's in, everybody's fighting for that top position. And a lot of times when women get pregnant, that ends up becoming, a problem. Oh, well, we're just going to write her off. She's going to go and be a mom and she's not going to be available to us as much as we need. And all these excuses of
Mhm.
why, someone who's pregnant can't have that top spot. She's going to keep that to herself until she has secured her spot. This is a complete business decision. And because Tom burned her as badly
Yeah.
as he did, she can't share that information with him or anyone until she's got her spot secured.
Well, I applaud you, Shiv, for having, I think, a lot more emotional restraint. And see, I'm a very emotional person. And so when, I get sort of
Yeah.
worked up, I would just like let it all fly. But she's holding her cards close.
She is until she's alone at the end of the night where we see her kind of curled up in her bed where we saw already that she schedules
Yeah.
her grief sessions. I mean, she does just have those moments by herself. And I mean, whether she was pregnant or not, that's a cut that's going to cut really, really deep with her. Like Tom had to have known that was the one.
Okay, I'm just gonna kind of walk over here to Connor's corner.
All right,
Sit
we're in
down.
Connor's corner.
Oh
Here we
yeah,
go.
cut this. I mean, I love everything about this episode for Connor. I mean, there was just some incredible one-liners. I'm blowing up in Alaska. I'm like I really kind of want Connor to just win one state. He's obviously not winning the election, but I think him winning Alaska would be hysterical. But I'm gonna go even more tinfoil hat here with this because here's the thing. Is Willow one of the smartest characters on the show? Because I kind of feel like she is. Like, let's just play this out for a moment here.
All right.
Because everybody else is just sort of like, Connor, you're a joke. You're an idiot. You don't bring anything to the table. We don't like you. We don't take this campaign seriously. And, in this episode, Connor is entertaining these just offers of all this just different posturing with making theme about, oh, you should be ambassador to this country, that country, the whole discussion about Oman. Are we above ground? Are we below ground? Where are we in the airport? All of that is great. But Willa, I think, actually says out loud really what the biggest benefit to Connor staying in this race is. And it's interesting that not a lot of other people have articulated this, is that once all this is over, Connor can write a book. He can go on a speaking tour. He actually stands to gain a lot of money by doing things this way, potentially being a spoiler in this election. Like, if Mencken does not win because Connor stays in the race and chips away like just enough of his vote to ruin everything, that makes Connor Roy a huge story. And here is Willa, who nobody takes that seriously. Everybody underestimates her just because of the way that her relationship with Connor started. But she is like playing a level of 4D chess. And by the way, when that confrontation between her and Roman, I thought she was about to just like tear Roman a new one. And I was just rooting for her.
Listen, Willa's a writer. She knows where the stories are. I mean, people have underestimated that on the show forever now because of how their relationship started, that she was only this one thing, and she wasn't also a writer and also a lot of other things. So her looking sort of big picture for him, I mean, she's already been doing some of that. I mean, there was a while there where Connor's like, oh, I my 1%, and she was just like, yeah. What does that buy him? A seat at the table. And that's where he needs to be. And that's where he wants to be, because now he can parlez-vous that into speaking tours, book tours, all kinds of other stuff.
And the brilliant thing for the two of them, that's all their money. That's like their own money. That's not tied up in Gojo, Waystar. It's not tied up in some appointment that Connor is clearly not qualified for whatsoever, which is just a part of the fun. Can you imagine Connor at some point saying he wants to be the UN ambassador? Connor, I love you, dude, but you're not even apparently trusted to be the designated speaker at your father's funeral, which, by the way, isn't Connor the politician? Isn't he the person who would be doing this? But it's like, no, apparently not.
He's also the first son. Yeah. I thought Connor for sure was going to be the person that was speaking at the funeral, but it's going to be Roman. So, I mean, there's been a lot of build up to this funeral. It was also really interesting to hear that, and sad that Connor had been still going to see Logan while, they're waiting for the funeral to happen. I guess the funeral home has allowed that arrangement now that he's been prepared, embalmed, and they've allowed him to have private visitations with him, which is perfectly fine and perfectly legal. Because we had that discussion before here at the channel where he was asking to be part of the embalming, which is completely illegal. It's against the legislation. That's not going to happen. No. Anyways, it doesn't matter how many billions of dollars. No funeral home is going to risk their license. But anyways, I thought it was interesting that he said that one of the things that brings him comfort is to go there and see that his father isn't with him anymore, and that gives him comfort.
I think it's just, I feel so bad for Connor. Okay, I'm not going to say Connor's a perfect person. He says a comment in this episode about Mogadishu that is incredibly offensive, and I'm not even going to mention it here. So Connor, you're not perfect, but you do have some element of a heart, and I think it is very sad that your father never loved you, and you have to do this sort of thing to find some element of comfort because nobody else in the family is giving you comfort. Instead, you just have Willa, who may not love you in a traditional marriage sort of way, but she does clearly love you and care about you and respect you enough to know that you guys have a future together.
All right, let's talk about what is going on with Matsson and his inflated numbers that are like the double the size of India.
Yeah.
And now Kendall knows about it, and he's brought in Frank in this very private conversation to basically say, there's only one crown and there's only one head, and it's going to be on his, and he wants to absorb Gojo and he wants his help.
This is very interesting. It's
yes,
totally going to blow up in Kendall's face.
Maybe.
I'm putting it out there. I'm throwing my line out into the open.
I don't know if he's got Frank beside him on that, it might actually go okay.
I just really worry about Kendall through the sense of, I think Kendall is very good at coming up with ideas and occasionally delivering them. Somehow the Living Plus presentation, despite every fabric of my being saying no, it actually kind of worked. I just don't think Kendall can have that good of a winning streak. I just don't count on him. But he does have an interesting ally here, because Frank, despite, wanting to peace out on everything and just go fly away with his compression socks forever, he's still there. He is highly experienced. He's not, as much as they try to paint, Frank in this, you're just a dumb brush sometimes. I don't think Frank is a dumb. I think he is very shrewd. I think he does have a lot of information. It's a much better ally, I think, for him to have than Roman, who I think Roman is always going to try to play to his own interest. And Frank, at least, he knows how to be a team player because he's been stuck in that position under, Logan's boot. And here is Kendall kind of sort of lifting the shoe up a little bit and sort of being like, you can be not my partner, but maybe the hand of the king, if you will.
Yeah. And I mean, he's a good choice for Kendall because he is very stable and he's been there forever. He really knows where all the bodies are buried. He knows how to deal with this. And, he wants to get paid out. Like, I know Frank's kind of been like, let's just let the deal go through so I can get paid out and go on my merry way sort of thing. But if the numbers aren't there, then, is the payout really going to end up sort of being what he wants it to be? Can Matsson really come up with this money? Like, that's sort of like, there's so many hanging balls now of this, like, if these subscriber numbers are all inflated, then where is the money actually coming from? Does he have it? Is he taking out loans? Is he like taking a loan to pay a loan? Like, what is actually going on with him? Like, I'm starting now that like all his numbers are skewed. I'm sort of like, okay, is his money kind of skewed too? Is it really not all there? I'm curious to see how that plays out in the next episode. But speaking of people that are getting paid out, my girl Jerry is getting paid out in the hundreds of millions, or else eggplant pics are coming out. Roman, you blew it. You're my guy, Roman. I'm with you till the wheels fall off, but oof, you blew it, and it's gonna cost hundreds of millions.
Right now, Roman, a couple of the wheels have already come off. He's like driving a car that's got like one wheel that's still on it. He's hoping that it keeps. Roman, once again, you have moments. I think Roman has moments of brilliance that I think
he does.
I think they surpass even Kendall's Living Plus nonsense. I think Roman can be the most brilliant of these three, but Roman is just so deeply and inherently flawed with how he talks to people, his emotional outburst, his obvious everything with Jerry.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with Roman. I do think out of the three siblings that we're talking about, they're looking to, run the company, and not your guy Connor, obviously. But I think he is the smartest of the three when it comes to ideas. Yes, things do go sideways for him, the rocket thing, all of that. I'm fully aware. The problems that he has are his confidence has always been a huge problem. He'll come up with this great idea and then he'll be like, I don't know, maybe, who cares? And so then nobody ends up actually standing behind him or his idea because he doesn't stand behind himself. The biggest issue he's having right now is he's had no time to grieve. Shiv has time that she's carved out of the day for her grieving scheduled sessions by herself. Kendall is like this. We saw him, riding high last episode. The beginning of this episode, he's back in a depression again. And Roman has nothing. He's taken no time at all to grieve about anything. He's not talking to anybody about it. He's just in denial about it. I'm hoping that the funeral is going to actually help him and help everybody, but help him the most, because he feels like the person who has had nobody to actually be able to grieve at all. And he's making all these huge mistakes by not being able to say goodbye and grieve. I mean, funerals are really important for a lot of people to be able to say goodbye and then make that next step. So that's why when he was like, I'm going to be the one to speak, I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Like, not only going to get some good Roman content with that, but he needs to be able to say what he feels and say goodbye. And then I think he can really be back on a good path.
Well, and I think it's important that I think he loved his father more in a way than Kendall or Shiv did, or at least he expresses it in a way more than Kendall or Shiv did. And I think I think it's a good choice for him to be the person to speak at the funeral. And this is an interesting question. I mean, you guys can let us know in the comments too. Does Roman have any friends? Like, we have seen occasionally, these Roman, love interest. I mean, Caitlin Fitzgerald's character from way back when, obviously there's Jerry, but we know how that is gone. It's like, is Roman's best friend Mencken? Because if that's the case, that's a really bad best friend, Roman.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Jerry even said it in this episode where she was like, I could have taken you right to the top. Like, I was here for you in a way that basically no one else is, and you blew it. Like, I was that person, and she was.
Okay, it's time to have the Skarsgård conversation here fully, because this man was having so much fun in this episode. Let's forget about the fact that Matsson is an awful human being who treats everybody terribly, doesn't know Greg's name, like, Ebba, I just feel terrible for Ebba. Like, he is just a monstrous person. But Skarsgård was having the time of his life through this whole episode, just jumping around, being manic, being weird. He's just like, I got cast as somebody other than the hot guy. I'm just gonna cook.
Yeah, no, he's living his best life in this role. He really is. It's such a fun, crazy role.
Yeah, and I think this character is clearly somebody who just thinks that they have a car that's faster than everybody else's car, and that he can just keep driving and driving, and no one else is ever going to catch him, and then he's just going to be like, ha, 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 and he's got the money in the trunk. And it's just like, well, some other people are building a better car, or they have figured out that you have made your car out of bad parts, and it is about to fall apart. It's going to have no wheels like the Roman car that has the one wheel left. Even the Roman car is going to pass you up, Matsson.
Oh, it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out now.
And Greg, okay, we'll have a brief cousin Greg conversation, because Greg apparently he's good for one thing: reading off a script and telling people that they're fired. This is, I mean, ironically,
He's the new Axeman.
Greg may be able to keep he actually is appropriate as the Slim Reaper here, because you'll be able to keep this role, Greg, for one simple reason. You know how to read what's written on a piece of paper, and you have no idea what the ramifications of being fired are, because you are the ultimate gift of nepotism who never really has had to do anything in your entire life to succeed.
Oh my God, you just handed him the bus schedule.
It's true. Greg can be funny, but like, what are Greg's qualifications? What does he actually do? Greg, your qualifications are you can read. Congratulations. You have a job at Waystar Royco that everyone else is losing their minds that you have.
No, he's funny. I mean, he's always been enjoyable on the show, but I've seen the comments of everyone who thinks that he's going to end up running the company. That is not happening. I'm sorry. Come for me in the comments. We'll go.
Oh, I'm about to say this is going to be totally just replayed back on Twitter after I say this if the finale goes south. But if Greg is in charge of this company at the end of the finale,
They would never do that. On
I
the
am
show.
going to go back in time and tell Jesse Armstrong not to write this script. I'm just going to be like, no, you're too good for this. Don't do this.
No, but if you do want to know who we think is going to be running the company, again, hit that link in the description for our Patreon. It helps support the channel, help support us, and you get some really good, cool content that you don't get here.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for your support, for hanging out with us, talking Succession. Man, just a few episodes off. It could be so sad. Okay, I'm not going to think about that. All right, we'll just see you guys here next time.